Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube. I've never done this before, but we'll see how this goes. So for my first YouTube video and continuing on from my informational posts on my Instagram account, jfayfitness, if you don't follow, which you probably do if you found this YouTube video, is we are going to be talking about bulking versus cutting. Okay, you'll find from YouTube that I'm a very weird person. Okay, so bulking versus cutting and my strategies. So first of all, let's differentiate. We'll talk about bulking first. So what is bulking? Bulking is basically you are looking to gain weight, and this is primarily from gaining more muscle. However, with bulking, just as a disclaimer, you will be putting on some fat as well, but we try to minimize that. Oh, also, yes, you are in a caloric surplus when you are bulking, which means that you are eating more than you are expending or what you are burning off. So, strategies for bulking. And again, disclaimer, this is what I found works for me. There's a lot of different ways that you can bulk. Clean bulk, lean bulk, dirty bulk if you would like, but this is based on what I have found, what works for me, what I like to do, and my personal strategies. So, my first strategy is slow and steady. This will go for both, but for bulking, I like to take it slow and steady so that I am not immediately increasing my calories like way beyond what I'm used to, and so my body will adjust more to the calorie intake versus just packing it all on, and that will also help me try to minimize as much fat gain as I am going to have. So slow and steady wins the race. That is true for bulking and for cutting. Definitely taking your bulk slow and steady and increasing your calories over time. So the aim is to increase about 200 to 500 calories over your maintenance. And if you watched my last informational video on my Instagram, I went into depth on what macros are and how you calculate your macros, and there you will find your maintenance calories. So for bulking, you want to be 200 to 500 calories above your maintenance. Again, going steady and slow for me personally is what I like. You can jump right into it if you would like, but typically, I'll end with more of that 500 calorie intake rather than just going straight into it. So for me, what I did to get there was I basically just increased my calories 100 calories every 2 weeks. You can increase this more if you find that you are stalling and you're not really seeing any progress. You can increase that number and even go weekly if you would like, but for me, again, I did it as slow and steady as possible so that I minimized my fat, my excess fat that I was going to gain. So I did 100 calories every 2 weeks. And again, this is going to take some time. So this took me about 5 months. You can do it faster if you would like, but you are at more of a risk of gaining more fat if you do it quickly. So again, this is progress and you have to be patient with the progress. And with the increase of 100 calories every 2 weeks, I aimed to gain about 1 to 2 pounds every 2 weeks as well. So if I was on track with the 1 pound, I just kept increasing the 100 calories. And if I was not hitting that goal for my 2 weeks, then I would increase the calories more over those 2 weeks or increase it a little bit more weekly. My second tip is to get in enough protein. Y'all hear protein is so important, and it really is, especially when you're bulking and you want to gain some muscle. So again, going back to my last video on Instagram about macros, I showed you how to calculate your protein, and what I did is really just calculated the example weight by 1 gram. So you want to increase this. And another way that you can find your protein is, for what I do, I multiply my goal weight by the 1 gram. So for bulking, I wanted to gain at least 10 pounds, maybe even a little bit more, just to ensure I was growing and getting as much muscle mass as I could possibly get within those 5 months. So I took my protein, which was at, I believe, 126. I was around 126, 127 pounds when I started this. And I took that amount of protein and just bumped it up to what my goal weight was, which was 140. Therefore, my protein was at 140 grams per day when I was bulking. And my third strategy for bulking is to progressive overload. So you really want to be increasing your intensity with your workouts, trying to gain as much muscle as you can, and that means pushing your weights in the gym. And yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that you can progressive overload. The top three, I think, that are the main basic ones is to, one, increase your weight. So when you are hitting, 10 reps and it's kind of getting easy for you and you're plateauing at that weight, increase your weight a little bit more so that you are keeping your muscles working the entire time. If you just stick at the one weight the entire time, you're not really going to gain much strength and much muscle mass in that area. So you definitely want to be increasing your weight over time. Another way that you can progressive overload is by increasing your reps. So if you don't want to increase the weight, you can keep the weight and then increase the reps. So say I was doing a squat at 120 pounds. Instead of increasing that weight, I would stay at the 120 pounds, and instead of doing 6 reps, I would maybe do 8 or 10 reps of the squat. But a tip, I wouldn't technically go over 12 reps for increasing strength, just because at 12 reps, if you're still getting 12 reps pretty easy, that kind of means you have to move on to the next step, which is to add more weight. And the third way that you can progressive overload would be to increase your volume or your sets. So instead of doing 3 sets, maybe increasing to 5 sets. Again, that is just pushing your body a little bit more so that you're getting more out of your workouts. So that's my strategies for bulking. Oh, and one more thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention. I always am full on a bulk. People say that bulking is great. You eat more food, like all this stuff. Let me tell you, it's harder than it seems. I sometimes have to force feed myself just to make sure I'm getting in the calories that I need to ensure my bulk and ensure I'm growing and gaining muscle. So it can get very hard sometimes. But a tip I have for that is to find foods that are nutrient dense but a little bit high in calories, opposite to what you're doing with a cut. So for example, when I am cutting or I am maintaining, I like to make oatmeal all the time, but I cook it in water just because that's I don't add any extra calories that I don't really need. But when I'm bulking, I like to cook my oatmeal with milk because it adds a little bit more calories, but you don't really feel it as much. How do I put this? So when you're cooking it with the milk, you don't feel it, as opposed to having the oatmeal and having something extra to get that calorie in, but then you feel extra full because you're having a full other meal. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's just another tip for bulking that I forgot to mention. And then now, cutting is basically the complete opposite. So when you're cutting, you are intentionally trying to lose weight, primarily fat from your body, while trying to maintain as much muscle as you can. And that also means that you are in a caloric deficit, which means that you are eating less calories than you are burning. Yes, you are eating less calories than what you are burning. So if I am burning, let's just throw out a number. If I'm burning 2,000 calories a day, then I will be eating, 1,800, 1,600, whatever you find that your calories need to be at. So, my strategies for cutting. For me, I really think that cutting is a little bit easier just because when I'm bulking, I kind of feel full all the time, and sometimes it gets really hard for me to eat, like I already mentioned. But then when you get a little bit lower in your calories, that's when it starts to get tough. So again, the biggest thing when cutting is taking it slow and steady. I cannot say this enough. You do not want to drastically cut your calories. You will lose a lot of muscle. It's not good for your health. Trust me, I have been there. But doing it slow and steady really optimizes your fat loss while maintaining your health and your muscle. So again, just like bulking, I kind of do the same thing when I'm cutting. I aim for a 200 to 500 calorie deficit, again, over time, and I use the same method. I start off by cutting about 100 calories every 2 weeks. And I do that in the beginning until I reach a certain amount. So I never really want to go below, I'd say 1400 is my lowest. I also kind of want to get it a little bit higher with this cut. I want to keep my calories as high as I can. So I'll go back and forth with calories and cardio. So another tip for cutting is adding in more cardio to create that deficit. So if you really like to eat, or if your calories are getting a little bit low, I would suggest adding in cardio to help create that deficit. So what I'll do is start off by cutting 100 calories, and then I will add in a little bit more cardio, and I'll go back and forth with that just so that I can keep my calories higher when I'm cutting instead of drastically dropping them so low. And when you are cutting calories, you want to take most of the calories from your carbs and your fat and keeping your protein high. A tip, I never like to go below 35 grams of fat. So I generally start taking from my carb source first, and then I will go back and forth again with carbs and fat, never going below 35 grams of fat. So, just a tip. My second strategy for cutting is to eat high volume foods, and high volume foods mean foods that have low calories so that you can eat more of them. So vegetables is a great example of this. There's not a lot of calories in vegetables, so you can have a huge portion of vegetables, say like a salad, or just adding vegetables on the side of your meals instead of, let's say, a burger is way more calorically dense than vegetables. So I like to add in a lot of salads, a lot of fruit, things that are lower in calories, that have a lot of nutrients that I can keep so that I feel more full when I'm eating. Another strategy I have is to take progress pictures. This not only helps you see where you are at in your progress, but it also helps you to know when you were stalling or when you were at a plateau. So when I notice that I'm not seeing as much progress through my progress pictures, that's when I know that I need to decrease my calories a little bit more or increase my cardio a little bit more. Progress pictures are a great way to see where you are at. A lot of people get hung up on the scale and the number on the scale, and for me personally, I like to not go through that because it's kind of psychological and I don't really like focusing on a number so much. So progress pictures definitely help you see where you're at, see what areas you would like to focus a little bit more on, and yeah, that's just a great way to see where your progress is heading and help you figure out what needs to change. So yeah, that basically wraps up my strategies for cutting. Again, adding in more cardio, increasing your volume of your training or your sets, decreasing your rest periods in between your workouts. That's some other things that you can do to keep your heart rate up and to burn more calories so that you don't have to eat less. So yeah, that's basically just a broad overview of the things that worked for me. Again, cutting can seem very stressful for a lot of people, but remember that you're more than just a number. If you have a certain goal, go for it, but don't get hung up on all of the stresses that come with cutting. And another thing is, some people ask, where do you start, bulking or cutting? It doesn't really matter which one you start with. If you are a little bit on the heavy side, a little bit on the higher body fat side, I would say to start off with a cut to minimize that body fat and then go into a full bulk so that you don't gain too much body fat. But other than that, I really don't think that it matters. If you are trying to gain muscle, obviously I would say go with the bulk. And if you are trying to lose some fat, tone up, get ready for summer, then I would say cutting is your best bet. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below, DM me through my Instagram. I was always here, open, willing to answer any questions that you guys have. And also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.